Welcome everybody to another episode of Jericho's Daily Fantasy Basketball Breakdown. Thanks for tuning in. As always, my following is growing quite a bit. Big shout out to everybody who has subscribed to my lineup service. My lineup service is not just lineup, so make sure you get the most out of it. If you have any questions about bankroll, any questions about who to play in a tournament, and on and on and on, I mean, I'm able to answer all those questions. I'm going to start from the very beginning today. I'm not just going to play the main. I think I'm actually going to take part in the all-day slate. So for those of you that are subscribed, you more than likely will be getting an all-day and a main slate lineup for today. I recommend going a little bigger on the main slate than the all-day, just due to the lack of injury news that we have when the all-day slate is made. So it will be a very safe lineup. It will avoid all of the landmines that some people might take part in. We don't know if Stephen Curry is playing. We don't know if Festus Ezeli is playing. There's just a lot of injuries that we don't know anything about yet, and hopefully we get some of that before the 2 o'clock lock-in Central Time. But if we don't, I will make sure it is a safe lineup for everyone to roll out there. Real quick, last night we lost, which sucks, mostly due to the Knicks getting blown out in the fourth quarter. I kind of like to explain my reasoning to everybody. Aaron Brooks, when Derrick Rose sits, averages close to 30 minutes and close to 30 fantasy points per game. Last night, he played 13 minutes and got 10 fantasy points. He couldn't stop fouling. He got 4 fouls in 13 minutes of playing time. And then Fred Hoiberg, the coach of the Bulls, being the jackass that he is, decided that he didn't want to put Aaron Brooks back in the game, and he rolled with E'Twaun Moore. Pau Gasol didn't get in the game in the fourth quarter. Melo got pulled early. Butler got pulled early. I mean, everybody that I had stock in got pulled early because the Knicks scored 8 points in the fourth quarter and because Fred Hoiberg is a fucking asshole. So, tough luck. It happens in DFS. You can't win them all, but I do feel a winning streak coming on soon. And when there's a lot of games like this, I would definitely put more money on these than I would on a 4 or 5 game slate. Let's jump right in. We've got the Brooklyn Nets at the Boston Celtics. It looks like Boston's favored by 9.5 points, and you have a 204.5 over-under. I'll start on the Brooklyn side of the ball. There's no injuries for Brooklyn, and R.J. Hunter is questionable for the Celtics, but he doesn't play a big part in their rotation, so I'm not really worried about that. Brook Lopez is at 8,700 now on FanDuel, and at that price, I really don't want to pay for him. I do like him over the likes of some of the other top dollar centers like Andre Drummond, but I don't think this is a good matchup for him. And at 8,700, I know he's been pretty good, but his consistency is not on par with that price point. Thaddeus Young, this is a great matchup for him. The guy's almost always good for 30 fantasy points, and his price is depressed down to 6,700. Boston, not very strong against power forwards, and I think Thad Young probably racks up 35 to 40 fantasy points tonight, and at 6,700, that makes him my top power forward lock of the night. If you don't have him, I hope you have a good reason, because I think this is a great matchup, great price, all of the above. He is a guy that I'm going to begin building my lineups with. And I recommend that you do that in cash and GPP. I think he's a great GPP play. Yeah, he may be high owned, but he's going to get you that 5 times value more often than not. And he has the potential to get you 7 or 8 times value. I've won a tournament or two with him when he went for 52 fantasy points. So Jarrett Jack at 6,600. He has been rather consistent, but he's been consistently bad. And at 6,600, I do not want to pay for Jarrett Jack. Joe Johnson, no thanks, very inconsistent. Bojan Bogdanovic is interesting. He's probably a guy that I would touch in a tournament, but not a guy that I'm going to play in cash. At 4,100, he's been consistently hitting 19 to 22, 23 fantasy points, and at that price point, that's really what you need. I just know that he has that potential to dud, 5, 6 fantasy points, and in cash games, I can't risk somebody blowing up my lineup like that when there's 9 to 11 games. Bargnani, Larkin, Ellington, Reed, Thomas Robinson, Karasev. I'm not going to play any of those guys. Let's move over to the Boston side of the ball. There's not much that I love here. Isaiah Thomas is at 8,100 now, and although I do see him getting 35 fantasy points, he doesn't pay off that price of 8,100. And real quick, for anybody that's new to this, on FanDuel, you take a player's salary, and you basically multiply it by 5. because ideally you want to get a 300 score. That's usually a pretty good place to be, and you get $60,000 to work with. So 60 times 5 is 300. So Isaiah Thomas at 8,100 would essentially need 40 to 42 fantasy points for him to pay off his value. Just in case anybody didn't know what that means and you're new, I want to make sure to explain that. Jay Crowder, if you're looking for a cash game small forward and you have $5,900 to spend, he's definitely a guy that I trust rolling out there, especially against a team like Brooklyn that doesn't take great care of the basketball and overall just isn't a good team. I think Jay Crowder has a very good purpose in cash game lineups for tonight. Avery Bradley is interesting at 5,100. I see him getting 25 fantasy points. We all know that Brooklyn sucks against shooting guards, and that puts Avery Bradley in a great spot. I don't hate him in cash games, but I love him in tournaments because of his 40-point upside. So Avery Bradley, probably another guy that I would take a shot on in a tournament. Jared Sullinger's playing like garbage. I don't want to risk anything on him. Kelly Olynyk, a great tournament play because he has that immense upside, but he's not consistent. His minutes aren't consistent, and he's not a guy that you can trust in cash. Evan Turner, also interesting, but probably a tournament play only. With Marcus Smart back, everyone's minutes kind of waver a little bit in the backcourt, and therefore I don't trust everyone quite as much as I used to. Brad Stevens has a really garbage rotation, and Brad Stevens, just like Fred Hoiberg, really wants to fuck you. Like, he just doesn't care about fantasy. He doesn't care what anybody says. He's going to roll out whatever the fuck he wants to roll out. Moving on, you got Phoenix at Sacramento. This game is the reason why I'm playing the all-day slate. There is so much fantasy value packed into this one game. It's unreal. We do have some injury news. Rudy Gay is questionable. Ronnie Price for Phoenix is questionable. John Lure also questionable with his ankle injury. And Willie Cauley-Stein's actually going to come back. He's probable. It's hard to gauge what Rudy Gay's injury does. But if he's out, I mean, it gives an obvious boost to guys like DeMarcus Cousins, guys like Omri Caspi. Darren Collison should see some extra minutes if that happens, and he's been playing really well. And Rondo's more of an assist specialist, so I really don't think his usage goes up that much. But, I mean, Rudy Gay, it's more of a one-on-one type player. He doesn't get Rondo a lot of assists, so maybe it gives him a small boost if he has somebody like Collison or Caspi on the floor longer. Let's jump right in. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. DeMarcus Cousins. God, I hate this guy. Everybody knows I think that he is a piece of shit. At 9,700, obviously his value goes up a little bit with Rudy Gay if Gay misses, but I do not trust this guy in cash games. I know some people are going to roster him on the all-day slate, which gives us an advantage, because even if he gets his 44 fantasy points, he still didn't quite pay off his value. On big slates like this, I am not a fan of overpaying for anybody, no matter how consistent they are, because I'd rather have a consistent mid-tier guy that has the potential to get 50 fantasy points rather than pay $11,000 or $10,000 for somebody that's going to get 50 fantasy points for sure. I just don't think there's enough upside for you to consider that theory in daily fantasy. Rajon Rondo at 7,800, his price has come down. I think he's a fine play, more so in tournaments than in cash. He's a little bit inconsistent, but at 7,800, I see him getting 35 to 40 fantasy points. And if that's where you want to spend up is at point guard and you don't like the value there tonight, then I am all for that. Rudy Gay, if he plays, makes a fine tournament play. But also, we don't know that news, and I don't know if we'll have it before the 2 o'clock lock-in. Darren Collison, he's a guy that I would consider in cash and GPP today. More so in cash because he's been so consistent getting 20 to 25 fantasy points. His price point is at 5,400, and I really don't hate that play at all. Omri Caspi, his price has climbed up to 5,700, but I trust him to get 25 fantasy points. So just like Jay Crowder, I would probably take Jay Crowder over Caspi, and it's really close, but I think Crowder gets you 28 to 29 fantasy points. Caspi gets you 24 to 26 fantasy points. Even if Gay is out, I don't see Caspi having a monster game. but we all know that he has that potential. My issue with Caspi is that he'll have great defenders like Tucker and Warren on him. It's more of a matchup thing than a price point thing. Let's move over to the Phoenix side of the ball. Obviously, the John Lure injury news plays a huge part in what goes on. Because if he sits, TJ Warren is an absolute, I mean, he's a lock, and it's not even close. It looks like Markieff Morris is going to be out of the rotation from here on out. I'm assuming they just played him so they could get some sort of trade value for him. Brandon Knight is my point guard lock of the day on the all-day slate. Brandon Knight is a guy that I'm going to have in every single lineup. I wish that he was on the main slate because I want to play him there too. But at 6,500, I mean, no Eric Bledsoe against Sacramento. This guy's fantasy gold. I don't see him getting less than 40 fantasy points. I'm serious. I think he breaks 40. I think he has 50 fantasy point potential today, and I really love this matchup for him. TJ Warren, again, if John Lure is out, and hopefully we know that by 2 o'clock, TJ Warren should be 100% owned. I mean, the guy put up 50-plus fantasy points last game. He's playing against Sacramento. He's going to have a premier matchup, especially if Rudy Gay sits, because he's going to be guarding the likes of Caspi or, it's pretty much it. Caspi's their only small forward option. So TJ Warren a lock. John Lure, if he plays, I don't think you can trust his ankle injury, so I'm probably not going to go there. PJ Tucker, yeah. I think even if John Lure plays, PJ Tucker's a cash game lock at 4,300. Guy's been playing out of his mind, and Sacramento is a great team to target guys against. Tyson Chandler, he's been seeing a little more minutes lately, playing a little better. The Suns don't utilize him right. I don't think he's a good fit there. I think he should have stayed in Dallas, but I know he went for the money. Devin Booker, cash game lock, 3,600. Guys coming on, and Ronnie Price. If Ronnie Price sits, you pretty much have to plug in Devin Booker. So I am not opposed to having 4 guys from this game. I'm not opposed to having 4 guys from Phoenix alone and 5 or 6 guys from this game. I know it sounds crazy because there's so many other games, but this is the one game that I want to target, and this is the one game that's going to make me want to play the all-day slate, no matter what, really. Let's move on. You got Oklahoma City at Charlotte. This is where the main slate begins. This is the first game of the 9 that are going to be on the main slate. It looks like Oklahoma City's favored by 7, which isn't a bad spread, and you got a 208.5 over-under. The obvious guy that everybody's going to target here is Russell Westbrook. And, whatever. It looks like Spencer Hawes and Jeremy Lin are questionable, and that is the only injury news from this game. Obviously, Hawes being out gives a boost to guys like Zeller and Kaminsky. And Jeremy Lin, if he is out, gives a boost to Kemba Walker and Nicholas Batum. On the Hornets, I have Kemba as my top projected player, but I don't like his value at 8,600. I think you can do a lot better at point guard. I know he's been on fire lately, and if Lin gets ruled out, I might change my tune a little bit. But I just think there's better options against Oklahoma City. I know Westbrook's not great against point guards, but it's just he's going to have to guard him all game. It's got to wear him down, guarding Russell Westbrook. He could get in foul trouble. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong. Nicholas Batum at 7,400 is a very solid play. I know he had a bad game yesterday. We're coming on to a back-to-back, which is a little bit worrisome, and that's probably the only reason I'll fade him. But this guy is rock solid, and he has 40-plus fantasy point potential every night, whether it's a back-to-back, whether he's injured, whether he's sick. It just doesn't matter. Yesterday, I think he just had an off game, but I would look for him to bounce back today. That being said, there's probably too much risk for me to roster him. Jeremy Lin, if he plays, is a great value against OKC, and I wouldn't mind that, depending on what the injury status is. If they say he's going to try to give it a go, don't fucking play him. If they say he's 100% and ready to start, then play him. Cody Zeller, been very consistent, 4,700. I'm okay with plugging him into any cash game at power forward, more so if Spencer Hawes is ruled out. Frank Kaminsky, great tournament option. Marvin Williams, Jeremy Lamb, no thanks. Hairston, no thanks. Hansborough, blah, 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 blah. Nobody gives a shit. Russell Westbrook, everybody's going to play this guy, and I think everybody's a fucking idiot. He's 11K now. 11 fucking K. You say 11K. I don't know how many times I have to say it to fucking pound it into people's brains, but do not pay 11K on a 9-game slate for a guy whose ceiling is 55 fantasy points. Maybe he'll get you 60. Maybe. But he's pretty consistent. 50 to 55 fantasy points. And yeah, that's nice for 11K. I mean, he's paying off his salary. But what if he gets 40 fantasy points? He ate your salary, and he fucked the rest of your lineup, and he didn't meet value. And at any given time, Kevin Durant can decide he wants to take over, or they can go on and blow out Charlotte, or Charlotte could blow them out. I mean, shit happens. So 11K, I think, is too much to invest in one player when you have 8 other games. Kevin Durant, he's under 10K, and I still think the same thing. I'm not going to roster Kevin Durant. He hasn't been playing that well as of late. Serge Ibaka, no thanks. Enes Kanter, no. Adams, no. Waiters, no. Roberson, no. Cameron Payne, no. Keep an eye on Cameron Payne. He could find a role in the team eventually. That's pretty consistent and could have some fantasy value. But I really don't love that game very much outside of the Kemba, Batum, and Zeller options. And I'm not even really sold on any of them except for Zeller if Hawes ends up sitting again. Next game, Detroit at Indiana. You got a 4.5-point spread and a 203.5 over-under. It looks like there's some Indiana injuries. Jordan Hill is probable now, so he's going to play, and that immediately decreases the value of Lavoy Allen. And Jan Mahimi is questionable. I would expect that Mahimi tries to give it a go, but we will see. On the Detroit side of the ball, Andre Drummond at 9,400. He looks okay, but like I said, I would rather pay up for somebody like Brook Lopez instead of Andre Drummond. He's very inconsistent, very volatile, and at any point in time, he can kill your lineup. Although Indy's going to be weak in the front court, I think that if Mahimi sits, I like Drummond a lot more than I do as of now. But if Mahimi's in the game, I don't love Drummond. I think Mahimi's going to bother him, throw him off of his game. Mahimi's a very sneaky good defender, and he does a lot of stuff that goes unnoticed on the basketball court. Reggie Jackson at 7,500. Ever since Brandon Jennings has come back, he's been very inconsistent and not reaching that price point value. So I'm not going to play him. Marcus Morris has been absolute garbage. I won't play him. KCP is a great tournament option. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And I'm all for rolling him out in a tournament because he has that 40-point upside. And he, I've noticed this as a trend, but when he gets hot, he usually carries it over for an extra game or two. I think one time I saw him do it for 5 games straight where he broke 30 fantasy points. So he's not a bad option. Ilyasova, Jennings, Stanley Johnson, Baines, Tolliver. I'm not going to touch any of those guys. Let's move over to the Indiana side of the ball. Paul George at 8,600 is a great tournament option because he has that 55 fantasy point upside, but he's not somebody that I'm going to play in cash today. Monte Ellis, he's really the only option from the Indiana side of the ball, and I don't love him because if KCP locks on him, which he probably will, then he's not going to do anything. I don't like anybody from the Indiana side. George Hill, Jan Mahimi, Rodney Stuckey, Jordan Hill. I think if Mahimi sits, you could give Jordan Hill a look. I think it would push him to the 25-minute range, and he's a very good point-per-minute producer, but probably only a tournament option there. I don't think I'm going to go cash. Orlando at Cleveland, you have an 8.5 spread. Cleveland is favored, and a 192.5 over-under, which is just fucking brutal. LeBron's price is down to 9,800. And I'm okay with that. He's been a little inconsistent, but he just had a couple days off. And the only concern is this turning into a blowout. And if I fade him, that's the only reason. But I really like LeBron at 9,800 against Orlando. It's just going to come down to whether or not I think that game stays close. And last time they played each other, it was a big-time blowout. So I'm probably going to avoid the Cleveland high-dollar guys. LeBron, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving. I don't think I'm going to play any of those. Tristan Thompson is my favorite cash game power forward. He's listed at 4,500. He's been seeing 30 minutes a game. He's not producing at the same normal clip that he usually does. But I still think he's a nice option, and I still think that in cash games, I trust that he's going to get me 20 fantasy points. I trust that he's not going to dud. And even if it's a blowout, I think Tristan Thompson gets a little bit of minutes in the fourth quarter. And so I think he gets to 25 fantasy points, which exceeds his value. And that's why I'm going to roster him in cash. You can put him down as another lock. Dellavedova, I don't want to play him. J.R. Smith, Shumpert, on and on and on. No thanks. Nikola Vucevic is going to be the highest owned dud of the night. People really underestimate Cleveland's defense, and they really underestimate it against big men, and I can't figure out why. Vucevic, I don't see him getting more than 30 fantasy points, and at 8,200, that is not good value. Tobias Harris has been pretty consistent, but I don't think he has a great game today. Elfrid Payton, Lord Elfrid, has fucking killed me lately, and I'm not going to play him. Oladipo, no thanks. Fournier, no thanks. Gordon. This is just an ugly game, and Tristan Thompson is really the only viable option for those of you that are taking notes. Let's move on to Milwaukee at Minnesota. It looks like this is a 1.5 spread and a 203.5 over-under. These are the kind of games that you want to target. Anything where a game is going to stay close is really where you want to find your fantasy value. Unfortunately, Milwaukee kind of murders your picks. I mean, there's no telling who you can target from that team because the minutes are a little inconsistent. Greg Monroe, there's better options. I'm not going with Monroe. Carter Williams, tournament, yes. Middleton, definitely in a tournament. Middleton at 6,800 against, likely Andrew Wiggins' defense. I don't think I'm going to play him. It did burn me the other day, so I'm sure people will roster him, but I just don't see him as a viable cash game option because at some point in time, the guy's got to come back down to earth, and 6,800 is the highest I've ever seen his price. Jabari Parker, OJ Mayo, John Henson, I can't touch any of those guys. On the other side of the ball, I think Karl Anthony Towns, even though his price is up to 7,900, I think he makes a fine play in cash or in a tournament. Ricky Rubio, also cash and tournament play. I like him in both formats. Andrew Wiggins is still too expensive. Zach LaVine, his price has dipped down to 4,700. Great tournament option. If you're playing some GPPs, I think you should have a little bit of exposure to Zach LaVine. Gorgie Jing, not going to play him today, but I do think that he has a nice game, probably gets 20 to 25 fantasy points. I just don't want to pay $5K. If his price was still in the 4,600 range, I would be all for it. And there's really nobody else from the Minnesota side of the ball that's worth a look. So if you're taking notes, Karl Anthony Towns, Ricky Rubio, really my two main options from that game that I trust in cash and in GPP. The next game, New Orleans at the Mavericks, is a 3-point spread and a 207 over-under. The Mavericks are at home. Devin Harris is doubtful, but we all know Darren Williams is still playing. I haven't seen news as to whether or not J.J. Barea or Darren Williams will get the start, but I am not going to play either one of those guys. On the Mavericks side of the ball, I really don't like anybody but Zaza Pachulia and Dirk. Dirk is one of the most consistent cash game options that you're going to find. I mean, he gets his 28 to 35 fantasy points. He's 6,800. Yes, he's going to perform a little bit under value, but you know that he's not going to fuck your entire lineup, which is very important in cash games. Sometimes you sacrifice that upside just so you can have the consistent guy that only loses you 2 or 3 points off of value no matter what. Dirk is that kind of guy, and I might pair him with Thad Young. Zaza Pachulia at 6,500. I think he makes a fine play because New Orleans sucks against centers, and people like Dwight Powell will have to go out and guard Davis for most of the night. I don't know. I'm guessing Zaza would have to be on Anthony Davis, and the reason Anthony Davis makes a great play tonight is because Dallas has nobody that can defend him outside of Powell, and they can't play Powell 35 minutes because they have Dirk and Zaza. So it's a very interesting night. Dirk's going to get his minutes as always. Zaza is going to play probably a few extra minutes to stick with Davis. That's really it from the Mavericks side of the ball. Barea, I can't do it with Darren back and not knowing what the rotation is going to be like. Raymond Felton's sort of the same thing. Parsons is an okay option. I just don't like him. I'm a Mavericks fan too. On to the New Orleans side of the ball. I don't think we have any injuries, but let me double check. No injuries for New Orleans. Anthony Davis has sucked lately. Everybody's been falling into the trap of playing him. But a 3-point spread against the Mavericks. Damn it. I might roster Anthony Davis tonight. He's definitely a top tournament option. And I think I might have to play him in cash. We'll just see how everything fits together. Tyreek Evans, I don't love him. Drew Holiday, don't love him. Ryan Anderson, don't love him. Eric Gordon, his price has dipped down to 4,800, but Wes Matthews' defense is definitely something to worry about, so I won't go Eric Gordon. Norris Cole has been seeing 30 minutes and performing at 4K. I think he's definitely worth a look. In cash games as well. I mean, he's consistently getting 20 fantasy points, and his price hasn't risen. So that's pretty much it. If you're taking notes, Zaza Pachulia, Dirk Nowitzki in cash, and then Anthony Davis and Norris Cole on the other side of the ball are really the only options. Next game, Houston at the Spurs. Little bit of revenge factor here, as the Spurs got beat by Houston last time out, but this time the Spurs are at home, and I would really look for them to come out strong and just dominate this game. From the Houston side of the ball, I'm not playing anybody. Fade everyone. Don't even play them in a tournament. Don't even play Harden in a tournament. Don't do it. They're not going to get there. They're not going to get value. Do not target people against San Antonio. Don't ever fucking target people against San Antonio. I don't give a shit if they're a point guard. I don't care. Do not play them. Kawhi Leonard, my top lock of the night. He will be in every single lineup that I build. Cash, GPP, it doesn't matter. Kawhi Leonard at 8,600 due to all the blowouts. His price has gone down. And yes, this could be a blowout, but I am playing Kawhi Leonard because Houston sucks against forwards, and Kawhi is a virtual lock for 40 fantasy points. Aldridge, I won't go there, but he's a nice tournament option. And that's pretty much it. Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, David West. I don't like any of them. Danny Green, no thanks. That's pretty much it. Let's move on to Memphis at Utah. Memphis is favored by 1, and you have a very ugly 186 over-under. Definitely not something that I want to spend a whole lot of time on. I don't like anybody from the Memphis side of the ball. I really don't. Jeff Green's price has climbed up, and I just don't want to play any of those guys. Conley in a tournament, maybe. Zebo in a tournament. Nobody in cash. Favors is questionable. Gobert and Berkshire out. And I don't like anybody from this game at all. If Favors sits, I think you can give Jeff Withy a look, but probably tournament only on a 11-game slate. I am not targeting Memphis at Utah. Denver Golden State, it's going to be hard to break this game down, which sucks because it's probably the one that's going to have the most fantasy value. We need to know if Stephen Curry plays. And it is a late tip-off, and I don't know if we're going to have that news. And if we don't, it really fucks up the scheme of the entire night. I mean, because if Curry sits, I play Draymond Green, I play Klay Thompson, I play Sean Livingston. And since I don't know that, I probably play Iguodala too. I did it the other night. Sorry, excuse me. So I don't know. I mean, we have to have injury news. Will Barton, I think if Curry sits, I play Will Barton. If Curry plays, I probably don't play Will Barton. He's up to 7,200 now. His price is finally kind of catching up to his production. But he has been insanely consistent, so he's not somebody that you can overlook. Gallinari, I believe, is active. Yeah, Gallinari is active, which hurts Barton. And at 7,200, I'm probably not going to take a chance there. Kenneth Fareed, no thanks. Jameer Nelson, no thanks. Jokic, no. Harris, no. Nurkic, no. Randy Foy, fuck no. Joffrey Lavernier, fuck no. Daryl Arthur, no. Papa Nicolau, fuck no. If Curry plays, he's overpriced at 11K, especially coming off an injury. If Ezeli plays, then it hurts Bogut. If Ezeli is out and Curry is out, I like Draymond Green. I like Klay Thompson. I like Andre Iguodala. I like Andrew Bogut. I like Sean Livingston. I basically like their whole fucking team. So I'm really hoping that Curry sits this one out, and I'm really hoping that we know it before 6 o'clock Central Time so that I can lock it into my fucking lineup. For the all day, I think I will likely still play Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and just pray that Curry sits. But even if Curry plays, we both know, all of us know, that those guys are still an option. They're still viable. I just think their prices are a little inflated after last game, which I think is kind of dumb because they sucked the game before. But that's FanDuel and their fucking bullshit pricing schematic. Philadelphia at the Clippers. This is the last game of the night. I know it's a long fucking video, guys, but we got a lot to break down, so I apologize for the length, but I'm trying to give you a detailed explanation on everything. Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan, my locks of the night. I love both of them. I want to roster both of them. I know that there's blowout concern. I'm not stupid. But I think in 3 quarters that they're going to get value. And I also think that they aren't playing very well as a team, and I don't see them blowing anybody out. Philly has been playing better. Yes, Philly's coming off a back-to-back, and they're on the road, which doesn't bode well for anybody. But Philly is young. Noel's playing better. Ish should bounce back tonight. So I think I'm just going to take the risk on Paul and Jordan, spend my money, and hope that if they do blow them out, those two guys get their points through 3 quarters, and I don't have to worry about it. DeAndre can have 40 fantasy points in 3 quarters. Paul can have 40 fantasy points in 3 quarters. And if they blow out Philly, they should. So I am okay with rostering both of those guys. That's my reasoning. JJ Redick is up to 5K. I don't think I want to pay that. Cole Aldrich is a guy to look at if you really think it's going to be a blowout. And same goes for Jamal Crawford. I think both of those guys are tournament options. Crawford and Aldrich. On the other side of the ball, Ish Smith, I don't trust him, especially after last night. He will be low owned, so you need to play him in a tournament. Paul plays great defense, and he's not a cash option, but he's somebody that I would consider in a tournament. I don't like Nerlens Noel, but I know everybody's going to be on him. At 6,300, I am okay with that play. Jeremy Grant, I'm okay with that play as well. My worry is if it is a blowout that Noel won't play the 4th, and if Noel doesn't play the 4th, it hurts everybody. That's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I hope I was helpful. I don't have a list of my locks, but, you know, off the top of my head, you've got Chris Paul, you've got DeAndre Jordan, you've got Devin Booker, Brandon Knight, that's Kawhi Leonard, and obviously the Golden State game. I would love to lock in every one of them if I found out that Curry wasn't playing. My lineup subscription service, I try to talk about this at the end so I don't bore you at the beginning. But if you're looking for lineup help, if you're looking for somebody that's going to actually direct message you and talk to you about the games, not somebody that just sends out a lineup every night, I can do that. My win percentage is at 85% on the season. We did lose last night. I'm always honest. I let everybody know when we lose. I am not a scam artist. I'm one of the very few honest providers out there that doesn't need to lie about my results. All of my subscribers can vouch for it. I hope you guys retweet and share the video with everybody that you know. I'm really trying to grow. Website is coming soon. My Twitter handle is actually in the description up above, and it's at In Jericho's Words. I've included my email down below and also details on my subscription service. And I really hope to see some of you guys sign up. I can tell you how to consistently win money doing this. I've been doing it all NBA season. I have made a ton of money, and I started with $50. So Anybody that says you can't do it, you can. It is not a game of luck. It is a game of skill. It's all about reducing risks and playing probabilities, and I can help you with all of the above. Thank you very much for tuning in. Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully we have a great 2016 and start winning some fucking money. Peace out.